Syria this week, there are pitched battles on two fronts against ISIS Islamic extremist terrorists, one led by Russian and Syrian army troops and the other by U.S. and rebel groups. For civilians, it's difficult to tell friend from foe anymore. In her new book, The Morning They Came for Us, journalist Janine DiGiovanni provides a personal look at the suffering of the Syrian people, particularly women. Scott Thuman recently spoke with the woman the Daily Telegraph describes as one of our generation's finest foreign correspondents.
They just disappear into prisons, mass graves, they disappear at checkpoints, they disappear when their villages are overrun, and their lives just cease to exist.
What Janine DiGiovanni has spent years documenting at immeasurable risk are the horrors forced upon the people of Syria as they play out much differently and with less certainty than any other conflict the veteran war reporter has covered.
One of your characters, Adnan, says, "This is the beginning of World War III. It started in Syria, but it will engulf the region. It is a proxy war." Is he right?
Absolutely. Syria's dying. You know, there's no or little humanitarian access. It's closer to 300,000 people dead now, 9 million displaced, 9 million people displaced. 4 million, it's probably higher now, refugees. It's a huge amount of people.
As well laid out as you have presented the scenarios from both sides in Syria, at times it's very difficult to know who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. Is
Absolutely,
that the case?
Yes. There are good guys, and that's the civilian people, whether or not they're on the Assad side or the opposition side. As the war has gone on and the rise of ISIS and al-Nusra has become much more prevalent, it's been hard to see winners and losers, victims and perpetrators, because both sides have been guilty of atrocious crimes.
So let's take a couple snapshots from the book. Some of the people that perhaps had a great impact on the reader as you were going through this. Talk to me about, for example, Nada.
Nada is a young activist who's from Latakia. She's Sunni Muslim. She was working for at the time, the Free Syrian Army, or various activist groups. And she was taken by the security forces one morning, early one morning, which is where the title of the book comes from, The Morning They Came for Me. And she was brought to a detention center, and she was held for several months, and she was raped and tortured and forced to watch things that she shouldn't have, and basically a broken person. And as she would tell me her story, she kept saying, "The morning they came for me, the morning they came for me." And I realized that for her and for all the people that I talked to that had been tortured or raped or dehumanized, there was almost a stop in their life, and it was the before they came to get them, and the after, what happened to them after the morning they came to get for it.
You dealt with some people that are known to our American audiences quite well, everyone from Steven Sotloff to Jim Foley to Kayla Mueller.
All three were Americans captured and killed by ISIS. Steven Sotloff and James Foley, American journalists. 26-year-old Kayla Mueller, a humanitarian aid worker.
What is it like looking back and realizing that you were crossing paths with people who ended up in these horrible scenarios?
Yeah, I had a message from Steve's family recently, and his dad was reaching out to me saying, you know, we wanted to touch base to see if there was anything else I remembered about being with Steve, because he missed him so much. I put myself in his shoes, and I just thought, you know, that happened to my son, and I had to, the memories of a reporter who knew him, because you just miss your child so much. Kyla Mueller I met right before she went into Syria, and I remember just thinking, you know, she was a sweet young woman who meant the best, but I remember thinking, you don't belong here. This is a really dangerous war. And none of them deserved to die.
What has changed in Syria that concerns you the most?
What has changed the most is the refugee crisis in Europe, the attacks in Paris and Brussels, so the terrorism being exported. And ISIS has gotten stronger and ebbed and flowed, but I think that essentially they're there for the long term.
Scott asked Janine about her hope for Syria. She said she still believes in humanity And humans who want the best for their fellow man and hopes, those are the people who will emerge from the ashes. When we return, a quick look at some happenings this week in Moscow. Snapshots from my quick trip to Russia and why 300 journalists were there.